Welcome, friends, to Ed Hartman's Wild World of Music and Film, episode 4. Whatever. And I have with me the esteemed, one-of-a-kind man of our time, Brian Schmidt. So, hello, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Hello, Ed. Thank you for that fantastic intro.
Yes. Well, I figure I got to put my tag on something here. So
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, for anybody that's new to this particular broadcast, I'm disappearing in my background here, but I'm a composer and a now producer, and in the last few weeks, I decided maybe I should do some interviewing of other filmmakers for some strange reason, and it seems to be working. And I have all sorts of people that are on the schedule, some pretty wild combinations of people that are going to be on here. So stay up to date on this. And also, I'm adding some solo broadcasts talking about music, and that was the latest one that's going to be on before this one. So anyway, enough about me. Brian, so we have our 10 questions to kind of start working with, and I hope you've memorized your answers. You'll be graded after this program. No. So who the hell are you? I mean, where are you from and where are you living now?
So, as you mentioned, my name is Brian Schmidt, and I currently live in Ohio. I was born in Ohio and moved off to some different states there for a while, but moved back to Ohio. I guess, 9 to 5 by trade, I am a computer programmer, but every spare minute otherwise has been spent on music and writing scripts and plays and focusing on movies and things like that. But yeah, that's about it. I don't have a lot of classical training in either music or film, but it has been a strong passion from day one.
Okay, get the hell out of here. I'm kidding. Well, no, we'll talk about all this stuff. So you were born in Ohio.
That is correct. And most folks think of Ohio as nothing but cornfields. And, that's not inaccurate. There's a lot of cornfields in Ohio.
I've been there.
Yeah, of course. We've got, Columbus, Ohio is, in the center of Ohio. And I don't think it's in the top 10 yet, but it's definitely in the top 15 largest cities in the U.S. So
Columbus?
It's coming around.
So you're in Columbus, or you're nearby cities?
I'm very nearby, yeah.
Okay. No, I've been to Columbus. I was there. It's been at least 15 years or more for a percussion event at the university. I went to Indiana University nearby, and we occasionally had friends in Ohio and dropped back and forth there. So
nice.
Familiar with the state. Anyway. Okay. So let's see here. So how did you start in film and music? I mean, what was the backstory on all of that?
Sure. So it definitely started with music, and we always had a piano in the house. So I grew up, playing the piano as soon as I was tall enough to reach the keys. Believe it or not, most of my inspiration, though, really came from video games. And that's going to sound pretty strange. But in one of your previous podcasts, you had mentioned your high school having a really big, digital section, if you will, before it was truly mainstream.
Actually, it was analog.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Digital.
But that's really where a lot of my personal music growth came from, and it sounds a bit odd, but the very first video games didn't even have music. I think one of the games on the Atari started putting music to their games. I think it was called Pitfall. And ever since then, I started growing along with the technology, right? The old games could only play one note at a time. They were
Yeah.
polyphonic, correct? So as the technology grew and new systems came out and they became more and more polyphonic, and I tried to imitate the music of them, I was forced to use more and more fingers. So I
Yeah.
really just kind of grew along with it and learned a lot from it. So that's kind of, I guess,
So,
the core.
so were you creating musical elements to the games yourself at some point?
I definitely tried to mimic them and then go beyond that.
Right.
But I was not directly creating the music for the games. I was just attempting to
All right, right.
recreate it, right?
Eight bit, yeah, 8-bit music.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And it was really great because the music coming from video games, again, with them not being able to have the technology they have today and not have all of the instruments, they had to keep it engaging using very few instruments or even very few notes, right? So it kind of really taught me the value of a good melody and uh, how simple can still be engaging.
yeah. Well, there's still kids playing those themes, on piano and xylophone, and man, that stuff never ends. I was never into video games, so I was a little ahead. I mean, I was from a pinball generation, and I wasn't even that good at that. But I had friends who were. But no, that's interesting. So, and then you got involved in. So, were you involved in video game uh, coding at some
Yeah,
point?
I've actually coded some video games myself.
Oh,
That has been in more recent years, and they've kind of been attempts at trying to stay current with the technology. I love being creative, but my day job forces me to stay current with the geeky, computer tech as well. So
yeah,
I've dabbled with mobile apps and VR applications and things like that. Um, but that's very much left brain activity, and I still love to get away from that and do the right brain kind of creativity as well, where you just create something from scratch.
right. So, what specifically your job in the digital environment right now is what? I mean, what do you do for
So
the?
my day job right now, I'm kind of a database programmer. I deal a lot with ETL and SQL, and everything from tool-wise, Microsoft, Unix, uh, all that stuff. It's I used to have a very strong passion for it, but it's becoming less and less of a creative industry.
Yeah,
Now that there's so much technology out there and companies have been doing it for so long, you don't normally get to build something new from scratch anymore, which is what I really enjoyed. It's really become more of a maintenance industry
yeah.
now.
Well, the first database I ever used that I still use is to this day, although I kind of had to stop because the systems was Panorama by a company Overview. It was made for Mac primarily, and it was wonderful. They called it a database that thought it was a spreadsheet or something. And it's still a wonderful concept. So I appreciate that, and I've created a lot of things on it. I mean, tens of thousands of databases on my computer that I can't even open anymore. I even created a drum book from a database of right-left patterns that I had to figure out myself because I teach drums and percussion, and that's my major resource that I start with. So anyway, but I appreciate that. I mean, I appreciate databases big time, and as a music creator for film and TV, keeping track of hundreds and hundreds of tracks is a database issue. And I teach licensing, and that one of the first things I tell them is don't be like me, where it's too late. So, you know, so I have to reinvent the wheel every day. Anyway, all right. So, and then the music side you said was kind of more came from self study and just kind of working on your own.
That is true. To this day, I still play by ear. Um, I can run stuff through my MIDI controller into the computer and have it spit out the sheet music, and I can tap my way through sheet music. Um, but it's never. It sounds terrible. I don't want to say this on your podcast, but it's never been a priority. I've been able to do everything I've wanted to do playing by ear for the longest time, and I just enjoy it more than anything else. Music and playing the piano. Um, it's still my primary source of expression, right? It's
Mhm.
still my therapy, it's still my escape, and it has to stay fun.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I've tried learning sheet music, I've tried sitting down, and it just starts to feel like work, and I walk away from it. This is the one thing that has to stay
Right.
creative and fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody comes from a different place, and I mean, I've worked with musicians over the years that never read music, and I have no problem with them. I mean, they had some of the best ears I've ever worked with. So, I see it as just more access. If you learn how to read, it's just accesses you to a lot more material out there. That's all. You know, it's
It's very
more
true,
difficult.
and I appreciate your comments on that. It has always made me feel a little bit like imposter syndrome in the industry when I talk to other folks that play. But it really hasn't shown up to be a problem yet.
Well, we all are have imposter syndrome big time. I mean, I'm attempting to be a so-called producer and whatever, and you talk about imposter syndrome. Oh my God, you know, I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, I'd been doing this project of releasing a 1938 unreleased film, and we had no clue what we were doing when we started that. So, you know, anyway, no, I get you on that. I mean, I do teach. The reading music can be divided into melody, harmony, and rhythm. And one thing I tell people when I teach music is that melody and harmony is relatively simple. You have a clef, treble and bass clef, whatever, and you put a note on a certain point. That's that note. When you hit a piano, it's that note. I mean, it's pretty simple. Rhythm is the problem. And one problem with rhythm is if you go back 500 years when it was created, first of all, music didn't sound like it does now. And it was created by a whole bunch of different people. Yeah, the street musicians, but they really didn't have a lot of access to writing things down. So eventually you have to kind of think, well, who created rhythmic notation? And you would realize, well, maybe the court, the kings, the queens, who were hiring the court musicians, eventually the church, eventually publishers, all sorts of people in power. Anyway, the short answer is music notation, Western music notation sucks really bad. And I've been reading it for all my life, which is a long time. So I never blame yourself if you can't figure it out, because it was not meant for you to learn easily. And I believe that has to do with power, because information is power. And in fact, even musicians have defense about its job security. The irony of becoming a music teacher is you're teaching other people to take your gig away. I mean, that's a real thing, you know? And I got over that way early. It was never an issue for me. So, and I've taught musicians that literally have taken my gigs away. That's fine. I'm good with all that. But anyway, so don't blame yourself about that. And there are ways to learn rhythm of music. If you divide it into rhythm of music, it's a little easier than, because the music theory books really suck. And the other thing you got to understand about language is you don't want to learn it by reading it first. You want to learn all about music by listening and speaking it, which is what you've done. And I have pretty good ears. I've been listening to your music and figuring it out. And now today's tools are tremendous, because I can play a piece into a program and immediately kick out a pretty reasonable, printed version of that. So yeah. And then eventually, if you create stuff and then you just kind of give it names, that's all reading is, and just study what you're doing. So I think by creating stuff, you're going to have a much more fun time to do it, and you may wind up learning more about reading, about that. If you're ever interested, let me know. I can help with that. So, and it is actually, once you kind of realize, wow, that's all that is. It's not nearly as intimidating as you might think, but it's taught badly too, in my mind.
Nice. Well, thank you, Ed. I will never turn down help or assistance ever. So thank you very much. I may take you up on that.
All right. Okay, so when and why? I don't know, it's kind of related. I didn't really think that hard about these questions when I started them off. Um, when and why did you start in your field? I don't know. Give a
So,
shit.
it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I think music just continued to grow for me, and I pushed boundaries where I could to kind of get more experience. I started, uh, going to open mic nights here and there. I've played a convention here or there. Nothing to write home about, nothing super fancy, but I was trying to kill the stage fright, and just kind of spread my wings a little bit. And eventually, I went to a small school here in Ohio. It was kind of a month-long program to become a certified sound engineer, so I could see how uh, music is really recorded. I mean, sure, you hear about it, but I wanted to. That's what I do. I jump in with 2 feet, and I just take my
Yeah,
lumps and figure the rest out along the way. And
yeah.
so I went to this sound engineer school, and um, they had a really old soundboard, but they had multiple studios in their building, and they just bring in bands for free at 11 p.m. or midnight. Bands that wanted to come in and record, and they teach you how to run the soundboard and do things like that. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot, but more than anything else, I really learned to not judge a book by its cover, which sounds like such a kindergarten lesson to learn, but maybe I never learned it really well until I went to that place because, they had some folks come in that, they looked like they needed help. They looked like, have you eaten in a while? Should I call a doctor? I'm not really sure. Um, and they sounded like angels. They had like
Yeah.
amazing singing voices, or they'd sit down behind a guitar and just kill it. And it was a real growth experience for me personally and technically. Like I really enjoyed it. So ever since then, of course, now I have a DAW set up in my house, and I'm learning more and more about the right ways to patch and bundles and sidechain and all that other stuff. And um, it's not that I want to be producing other people's music for the rest of my life or anything. I just want to know how it works. I got to know. It's
Yeah.
an obsession.
Well, if you can produce other people's, that's taking another step. It's one thing to do your own stuff. You can screw it up, nobody cares. But um, I draw the line. I don't produce anybody else's stuff. I mean, I've done a little bit of producing, but I don't want to engineer anybody else's stuff. I'm just not that good at it. And I've always kind of faked my tech pretty well, but I still don't know what I'm doing. It seems to work though. I mean, I have success with it in some respects. Yeah, but so and have in so yeah, the open mic thing is a lot of fun, and I did those early on, and played them off and on, and then there's jazz uh, jam sessions and things like that, and you never know who you're going to meet. Some of the best musicians I've ever worked with came from open mic situations. Absolutely,
Nice.
yeah, and, I mean world class. So it's yeah, you don't ever. The minute you think that person's an idiot, they blow you off the stand, and you're oh man, what am I doing? The best musician I ever met, I think, is Klaus Lenzian. He passed away a few years ago, and he was this incredible guitarist. You can find him on YouTube. There's friends that have posted his 35 albums or whatever. Yeah,
Wow.
and he did himself. And all he really liked to do was play in a coffee house. And he was really tall, lanky guy. And he played the guitar. He kind of crowded around it. And he sounded like three guitarists at once. I'm not kidding.
That is
I was lucky
awesome.
enough to work with him on a couple of concerts and in bands and stuff. So, all right. So, basically, the trajectory is you were kind of doing music on the side for fun. And you said you played some conventions. Was that kind of singing and playing, or just playing music? That's
Yeah, so I ended up writing a lot of my own songs. And, again, probably nothing to write home about. They weren't, pop song worthy or anything else. It was probably closer to Broadway or theater, maybe the old Billy Joel style kind of stuff, but storytelling with music.
right.
And, I did play a couple gigs here and there and just played my original stuff and, uh, had limited success, but didn't really expect it to turn into a career at that point anyway. I was just trying to, get my feet wet and kind of gauge other folks' reactions. I'm really big on putting myself out there and accepting the feedback one way or the other, right? Um, if I'm my own worst critic, then everything I do is terrible. If I'm an egotistical maniac, everything I do is awesome, and neither of those are the truth, right? So let's get
Right.
to the truth. Let's find out what's good, what's bad, what needs improvement, and just keep building on that.
Right.
So
Right. All right. And as far as the filmmaking side, what was kind of the starting point for that, or is that really recent for you?
so the progress has been recent, but that has been around a while as well. Back in the early 90s, I actually started um, writing more and more. Went from small little plays to kind of more of a TV show and a movie script sort of thing. And it was always sci-fi, right? A great deal of what I do is always sci-fi with digital music. Again, that probably came from the video game background, right? A lot of synthesizer stuff and whatnot. So I wanted to make my own movie. So I wrote this movie script, and I'm like, I'm going to make it. And I tried to get my hands on some of the software that could make CGI back in the early 90s, which the good stuff was not even readily available to consumers back then. And I got what I could from the library, tried to give it a shot, spent weeks trying to figure out how it worked. And ultimately, the home computer was simply not powerful enough to do it. So I hung it up. I just kind of stuck it in the back room there, and I went on and just kept going with music. And then only recently have I felt like the technology has really been there and at an affordable cost
Right.
for
Yeah.
consumers to be able to start producing real CGI and animations and stuff like that. And I dusted off some of my old ideas and have started to look at them and work them a little bit. So that's really where it is from the film side.
Yeah. Well, timing is everything. I could not have probably even scored the film that I did recently without the maturity of logic for me and kind of my timing in there, and then understanding. I mean, almost everything happens at a certain time in your life, right as things are available, to you. It's remarkable how that is. Maybe it's always been there, but you're not always aware of it, and it's just the awareness of that. But the speed of even how DAWs have improved, how Access has improved, the fact that we're doing this right now through the
Yeah.
pandemic, I could not have done this a year ago because I don't wouldn't know what Zoom was. I mean, nobody did. So that's another remarkable aspect of serendipitous timing on this. So I hear you on that. I'm It's remarkable how many things you can do, and part of it's just kind of deciding you really want to do something, and then you figure it out. Like with podcasts, I've been working on a lot of podcasts. I've been interviewing a lot of them for my own projects, and I decided to do this because I really just wanted to meet a lot of filmmakers too, and and then once I started looking into it, I realized, wow, this is maturing with Anchor.fm. You must use that, and anyway. But there's there's so many opportunities right now, and the fact that I've kind of gotten used to iMovie, so I can make at least quick films and stuff like that way, and I've done that too. So, yeah, I'm right with you on that. I think that's it. You just got to keep your eyes open and let the technology catch up to you sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with what you say there. It's partially the awareness, it's partially the timing, and it's at to some degree your ability to consume the new information. Maybe it
Yeah,
existed 6 months ago, but you just weren't there yet.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Let's think about some inspiration here. So when you think about films, let's start with films. Are there any types of films you really, really enjoy more than any other kind of film?
Definitely. I do tend to lean towards the science fiction and the fantasy. Again, it's that escapism, right?
Hmm.
Take me to a different place, a different universe, a different world. Uh, I really like that sort of escapism kind of thing. So, the big two, right? Star Wars and Star Trek. Everyone talks about those, and of course, um, Star Wars and Star Trek are the big ones. But I actually like kind of the underdog in the sci-fi world. I really like Tron,
Yeah.
and not many people care about Tron anymore, and it makes me so sad because I really liked Tron. I thought it was great.
Well, it was wild, the first one, especially. I mean, that was so unique at the time. Nobody could figure out quite how a lot of that was even done. It was so,
Oh yeah,
you know,
and
state of the
the
art.
the first one was, I mean, to say it was ahead of its time, what might be a bold statement, but I think it was definitely ahead of, it came out before society was really ready for it, I think.
Huh.
Um,
Yeah.
Plenty of people didn't even have computers, right? And here comes Tron, and we're
Yeah.
dumping you a computer world, and
Yeah.
it was a big leap, I think, for a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah. Well, I told this before, but my mother's cousin was Harv Bennett, who directed, well, he produced Star Trek 2 through 6 and saved the franchise. So,
Yeah, no, that's
that's
fantastic. That is
crazy.
so cool.
And speaking of sci-fi, I was at Paramount for a film festival nearby, and I took the tour. And they let you hold an award, an Academy Award, and I by just random chance, I wound up holding the 1953 War of the Worlds special effects Academy Award, which is my favorite movie when it comes to sci-fi. I mean, I think that was the most amazing movie I'd ever seen. Like of that genre. To this day, I still think it kicks butt over almost anything else because it's got so much. I've been reading about it lately because there's been some Facebook postings. George Pal did all of that as a producer and director or whatever, and or I think he was producer, but the effects on that thing were extraordinary. The amount of overlays they did. There's like 5 shots on top of each other. That sort of thing. Richard Lyford, who did As the Year Turns, which is a silent sci-fi that I got involved in, he had overlays going on, and he was 20 years old when he did this. It was his ninth film. Yeah, you
Wow,
got to see it. So it's on
that is
Amazon
crazy.
Prime. It's going to Turner Classic Movies.
Yeah,
So
that's great, and it is on my list for
yeah,
sure.
check it
Uh,
out. You'll be amazed. So I know I hear you, and I think from a standpoint of genre, I'm addicted to sci-fi pretty good. The Expanse has been my show of choice right now.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, that is really epic. So I just really appreciate the production level on that. I still can't figure out how they do a lot of that stuff. I mean, to this day, they're floating around in spaceships, and I'm thinking, are those on wires or what are they? Is it all green screen? How are they doing that stuff? Because when Ron Howard was doing it on Apollo 13, they would get uh, a plane and start doing uh, up and down dives to achieve weightlessness and shoot in a plain, but they're
Yeah.
not doing that. It's like I use a combination of a whole bunch of stuff. So anyway, all right. And then as far as music, are there any types of musical, not just styles, but composers, or especially on the film side of music? Is there anything you can think of from that standpoint?
There is, and this is one that I have put some forethought into because there's so many good answers. Like I just really enjoy so much of it. Um, Obviously, John Williams with Star Wars, but that's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. Everyone likes that. Um, some other ones, the 1989 Batman by
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman. Yeah.
Wow, that one I thought was just really, really great. And then, of course, the aforementioned Tron, right?
Yeah.
Wendy Carlos and specifically The Light Sailor, that particular track. It blew my mind musically. It was such a, orchestral, major chord, typical movie theme that was somehow overlaid with these minor synth digital sounds simultaneously, and it worked. Like,
Huh.
I
I
don't
didn't
think
even
you should
put
be able
that.
to do that, but they did it, and it was great.
I didn't even put that together that Wendy Carlos did that score. I had forgotten about that. Man, yeah. I don't know who did the second one. If that was,
You mean the recent one, the
yeah, yeah,
Tron Legacy?
right,
Well, most of that was done by the EDM group Daft Punk,
right.
and in fact, I think they just broke up yesterday. So my heart sank a little bit because I loved the aesthetic that they had for that movie, and it was just really cool. And if Disney does make a third Tron movie, it's unfortunate Daft Punk won't be around to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
They had a great style. Of course, I suppose that means there's a potential opportunity there for somebody new to do something even cooler. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll make a call.
yeah,
As soon as this is over.
let's do it, Ed.
Damn right. All right. Any classic films earlier stuff that you kind of gravitate to, film music combinations, things like that?
um, so I guess if you want to go, well, probably not much earlier. Uh, I think Tron was 1982. That was pretty early from my standpoint.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as films, 30s, 40s, 50s, anything like that that you like?
Uh, probably. Um, no, I think I'm going to pass on that one, Ed.
All right. That's okay. You're
I,
allowed.
I don't feel informed enough to make
Right.
a good, strong answer with that.
Well, this is
So,
one reason you got to watch TCM because you can only get educated.
right, right.
I've learned a lot by watching that. Anyway, yeah. No, I mean, I go back to all sorts of movies. I've just been watching movies forever. It's silent movies on, so to me, it's all good. Yeah. Okay, and then what about so filmmaker composer collaborations? I mean, Williams and Spielberg, of course, are the major two. And
Yeah, for sure.
Bernard Herrmann and Alfred Hitchcock, they did a lot together. Bernard Herrmann's first movie was Citizen Kane. Yeah,
Wow.
hell of a movie. Yeah. So, is there anybody comes to mind? Any groups like that connections? I mean, it could be modern stuff too.
I liked, again, I'm reaching away from the easy answers and maybe going something a little bit more obscure, but not much. Don Davis and the Wachowski brothers on The Matrix.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
thought that was, you know, all the Matrix movies. I thought the soundtracks were fantastic, and the
right.
music was really well done.
Oh no, excellent, excellent stuff. Incredible storytelling in that thing, and special effects, the whole bit. I mean, that's just that whole package is off the charts good. And Keanu Reeves is just insane.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. And
Yeah,
yeah, that was absolutely a whole great universe they put together there. A close second I would probably say is Back to the Future.
Yep.
Um, Excellent movies, excellent music.
Silvestri, I think. Alan Silvestri, I think.
Alan Silvestri, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the great theme scores of all time, and he created themes that could move through through more than one film. I think that's kind of the ultimate test of a thematic composer. Can they make something that can live beyond one movie and get reused and from there, like Goldsmith and the Star Trek stuff, and uh, the I forgot the name of the composer, younger composer who's picked up on Star Trek. That actually my second cousin Harv Bennett discovered, who kind of continued. I can't remember his name, but he kind of created the next generation stuff. Anyway, we'll have to look it up
Okay.
later. So,
Yeah, I've certainly seen the movies, but I don't remember who it is on the top of
yeah,
my head.
yeah. Yeah, I feel there's part of me that kind of wonders I'm attempting to do this podcast because I'm not a good brain for names of things like that, and
Oh,
I'm
I'm not
always
either. I am the
forgetting.
worst, Ed. It is,
Yeah.
you know, I can only cringe at the number of faux pas I will probably make,
Nah.
going forward.
Well,
But
hopefully people will listen to this and go, "Man, that was that guy. What? Come on!" And
right,
email me
exactly.
and correct me, and that's fine. Sounds good to me. Okay, and then so you have a film called Contagious, timely theme about catching COVID, or is it about something else?
Yes. So, Contagious is my musical animated short film. I just finished it a few weeks ago and dumped it out to the film festivals. Again, not really knowing what I'm doing, but let's get it out there. And it's about the contagiousness of yesterday. So it's all about folks not being able to let go and passing that hurt and pain onto others, whether they're conscious of it or not. So all of this in a film that is, 4 minutes and 14 seconds long. So,
Yeah, I've been watching it a few times. It's a wonderful film,
oh, thank you
and
so
I'm
much.
really impressed with the ability that you can actually animate stuff like that. When I was a kid, I was doing Super 8, and I would do animations with toys and things like that. And my poor Bolex Super 8 camera, which is really cool. Again, I should grab it. It's right in the room here, and it looks like it has like a magazine on top, but that's actually a place for the Super 8 cartridge that was in it. But it had a macro lens that could get down to an inch.
Yeah, okay.
But I never had the single frame device, so I'd have to kind of go like that and get a couple of frames, so that the animation was very jerky. It would never
Oh,
come out
sure.
real
Okay.
clean, and occasionally you get a hand in there, so,
Right.
but that was all computer generated. So you actually had to code that film, right?
That is correct. That was using a free software called Blender. And Blender's been around for a while now, and it has been growing in its feature set and its abilities. And I have been the last couple of years now, as hardware has caught up with the ability to produce better, you know, production level quality. Blender has become more mainstream because you can now do some of these more realistic and smooth animations, right? So that was done using Blender. It is the film's a very basic animation, right? I knew I didn't have the time to get crazy with it, so keep it simple. I'm a big believer in being conscious of cerebral competition, right? If you've got too much going on in your film or in your music, the message might get lost. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, you
Well,
only
no,
want to.
you have a nice simplicity to it for sure in image and storytelling. So it's definitely using with what you're good at and what you have at hand, using assets that are you know easy to use for you. I don't think I could ever figure out how to do that. But
Well, it probably took me a year and a half of doing YouTube tutorials and reading online and things like that. Again, it's stuff I can only do nights and weekends. I still have a day job, and um, the biggest challenge, absolutely the biggest challenge, is just distractions.
yeah, no
You
kidding.
know, you do have a day job, you do have Xbox and Netflix and other things, and it's really hard to just stay focused to the point where you learn something uh, well enough that you can actually produce content, and you stick with the project long enough to finish the content, right?
Yeah,
Distractions are just terrible nowadays. It's really
that's
hard.
right.
Um, but yeah, so about a year and a half to learn Blender, just to the degree that I created that film, and there's still so much more to learn. It's very complex software. Um, but again, I tried to keep that particular animation very simple. I did crank it up to 30 frames a second, so at least the animation appeared very smooth.
Yeah,
Um, so that was one choice I made, which at 30 frames a second, now your time to render the final project, that gets blown out time wise into a few extra days because you're doing 30 frames instead of 15 or 20. So that's a challenge. But
so it literally takes about 3 days to render that film.
yes, that film, I think it ended up being 7,600 frames, and it took about 74 hours to render it. So
And is that just kind of a basic personal computer, or was that something beefed up?
yeah, that's a great question. So the actual animation is on a PC that's really built for this specific kind of work, right? I bought a big monstrous video card just for this type of work, and that PC does just that. It's just made for rendering. The music and everything else, I actually have a laptop that they call a mobile workstation for recording audio. And that choice was made kind of threefold. One, it is a laptop, so it's mobile. So if I have to go record on site someplace, I have that ability. Two, the laptop is a lot quieter. The other PC, the fans create a bunch of noise and that ruins your recording.
Yeah.
And also the workstation class laptops, they have what's called ECC memory, or error checking memory. And I made that move because I got tired of my DAW crashing all the time. So
Yeah. Well, I have a Mac. I have a Mac Pro, and one of the older ones, and it hangs in there pretty well. It's at some point I'm challenging it the more video I start processing through it, but so far I haven't had any major catastrophes yet. So I hear you on that. Yeah,
nice.
well,
That
that's
sounds like a good machine. Mine's all PC stuff. So
well for Logic's great for composing because it's so creative oriented, with so many sounds built in. And then you can add orchestras and things like that to that as well. Yeah. So the film, again, a film's a great film, and then he created an interesting. Chicken or the egg? So was the song first or the film first? The song had to be first.
interesting question. Yeah, the song was first. Um, the the concept of the movie was kind of conceptualized at the same time I wrote the song, and this was maybe 15 years ago. But again, I didn't have the means to produce the film side. So it was all sitting in my head for 15 years, and
Yeah.
got to the point now where I could record the music and create the film side. But the song definitely came first, right?
Right. And so did you recorded the song? Because really didn't have anything to work with. It wasn't like you were scoring the picture because there was nothing there. So you pretty much just created the tune and created so that meant you had to kind of think about when you recorded the song, did you think about the imagery, or did you record it just as a track by itself and then adapt the imagery to the speed of this storytelling? Because there's like certain breaks in the middle for more music, it nicely interweaves against that. My best guess is you thought about the strategy of how this song was going to go in, with intros, verse, central section, verse, outro.
That is correct. And not only was that all kind of strategically planned when I wrote the song the first time, but a lot of those images were in my head as I was writing the song, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
it was just the coolest thing to finally be able to see it on the screen in real life. Like, it's been floating around there in my brain forever,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it was just fantastic to hit that play button the first time and watch it. Like, it was a real milestone for me.
Well, and what I like, I have my keyboard here. What I like about the song is it's got a simplicity about it. Kind of a Beatles kind of a sort of thing, you know. And then the second section kind of a little bit of a bluesy kind of thing,
Yeah.
you know.
I've got a lot of blues that shows up in my music, and yeah, I just love it. I think it's got such a great flavor and a feel, and it just, I feel like it connects with people and audiences faster. You know, like,
Yeah.
they can immediately start tapping their foot or swaying back and forth. I've got probably my most popular one from doing open mic nights and whatnot is called Stray Dog Blues. And it's simple. There's nothing complicated about the song or the piano. And everyone just smiles. It's like the Beach Boys all over again, right? Beach Boys music was not overly complicated, but it just made people happy. And, you
Well, the
know,
Beach Boys were well produced. I mean, they were top line wall of sound stuff, you know. Yeah. The only songs I've ever sung have been either Harry Belafonte, calypsos, or blues. So
nice.
everything else I leave to others. But I did a pandemic blues. I got nowhere to go in a hurry blues at the beginning of the pandemic. It's on my website for anybody that wants to purchase it for 99 cents or just listen to it for free. Anyway, so I love blues. Blues is great fun. So yeah, I hear you on that. Okay, and then the current status of that film is, it sounds like you've got some awards, which is great, from it so far, and gotten in or you got in some festivals in any event, right?
That is correct. I sort of jumped in and submitted it to festivals that had upcoming decision dates, right? Like,
Right.
I want that feedback. You know, this is
Yeah.
such a weird thing. It's kind of like CGI Broadway theater almost, right? It's very different, and
Yeah.
I want to know if it's resonating with people or not. So I chose a few festivals that had decision dates coming up, and so far it's been selected by two festivals,
Hmm.
and unfortunately turned down by a third. But two out of three ain't bad. And one of them, the LA Film Festival, they did nominate it. It currently has advanced to quarterfinal status,
Hmm.
and hopefully it'll continue to advance. They have not reached their final decision date yet, but that is farther than I ever expected to
Well,
get, and I'm just floored.
I've learned a lot about festivals, and I'm happy to help with that. Because the film we did, we went into a massive festival run, and As the Earth Turns got into 122 festivals,
Wow.
135 awards nominations, and the most important thing I can tell you about festivals is it doesn't matter whether you win or anything. The selection is a laurel. The nomination is a laurel. The award is a laurel. Whatever. The more laurels you put on your poster, is the key piece of information there. You want to plaster that
Okay.
thing with as many things as possible, because all a laurel is it's kind of a badge of honor saying, well, somebody else in the universe thinks this thing's worth something. You might want to watch it, and that's it. So and that's how my film's gotten where it has. Is just from all the attention from it and how everybody's gone, wow, this is really great. So it's like it's like a Yelp review. You know,
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome though.
and you want to learn how to work with those laurels. There's white ones and black ones and all the rest of that. Film Freeway is very good with all that stuff. So, download all that stuff, and you'll learn how to make them yourself if you need to, because sometimes they're not always available. And I would say there are tricks with Film Freeway that I always recommend, and one of them is if you can do a little promotion with them. Look at the pricing of promotions can be very, very cheap, because if you promote the film, you will get invited by dozens of festivals, if not hundreds.
Okay.
I mean, that's one reason we got invited in so many of them. It's one thing when you kind of pursue a festival on your own. And it can cost some money. This stuff can really get in there, and luckily, we had the budget to do it. But if you create a promotion, people start inviting you. They're much more likely to accept the film if they invite you to the festival. They'll also give you massive discounts on the submissions. So, a little bit of promotion go a long way. Here's what I can say. As the Earth Term stopped its film festival run in last year sometime, I'm still getting invites to festivals. And we
Wow.
started the film run in 2018.
Wow. Well, that is great
So
advice.
look into that. It's not bad. And there's other tricks too, but that's the big one. And I've talked to other filmmakers about that have figured that one out themselves. Because otherwise, you can spend $50, $100 on a submission to a festival. But there's ones that'll invite you and it'll be free, or it'll be 70% off or something. So and
Yeah.
that also you figure out which ones are interested in what you do, which is good. So, and our film was bizarre, black and white, silent movie. I mean, you wouldn't think it belongs anywhere. Yet people were so intrigued by it, the backstory and everything else, that part of it is how you construct your profile and all the rest of that sort of thing on there. So, and then if you can get to some of these film festivals in the future, hopefully when this thing goes away, man, they're a lot of fun to go to. But the virtual festivals have been great. And what's ironic is, as much as I love going to the real festivals, I found that the virtual festivals, I got to know people better. Because Zoom sessions, you could actually talk to people. When you go to a live festival, people are all tribal. They're in their different places. The filmmakers and their cast and crew all hang out together, and you can't always interact with them as easy. But at a Zoom session, it's a free for all. You can actually do better from a networking standpoint. So, and I recommend to composers and filmmakers to attend as many virtual film festivals as they can these days, because it's a tremendous that are much more available than it was, before. But there is nothing like getting to a real festival as well, an in-person thing. It'd be a lot of fun. All right.
Nice.
Well, we just got a couple more here. So, are you looking into any collaboration down the line or anything? Or are you kind of like doing your own thing for the most part? Again, there's no wrong answer here. I'm just curious.
Sure. I would love to do collaborations. You know, in the IT world, right? We call that peer programming.
Right.
You always get a different perspective, and you learn so much more. And two heads or three heads, four heads, always better than one. I have been solo on my projects. There hasn't really been much of a support system around my passions, right? Personally, so it's always kind of just been me, and a collaboration would be awesome. This particular film, Contagious, that was a $0 budget, right? That
Right. Yeah.
that was me doing everything, so it cost me nothing. Well, other than the festival submissions, like you
Right.
mentioned,
Yeah.
but um, I think a collaboration session would definitely generate a lot of growth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, working with people and filmmaking is a team sport. I mean, that's one thing about it. It's remarkable we can do as much as we can alone these days, but uh, if you really want to make something substantial, inevitably you got to have help. So,
Sure.
and I'm always looking for people to work with, scoring as well. So, you know, anyway, and then the filmmaking side, I'm working on a biopic and a documentary. So, those are all things that. And I'm trying to do a lot of that. Well, the documentary is almost done. I've done that myself. But a biopic, if I get into that, if that actually happens, that's going to have a pretty large team. I will say I've always been good at networking, and virtually again, you can network with anybody around the world now. But there's always local, for anybody out there, there's always local groups that people are not always aware of. In Seattle, we have the Seattle Composers Alliance. And there may be songwriters. I'm sure there are songwriters associations and groups near you, and there are probably composers groups as well. So almost every city is going to have some types of organizations, either nonprofits or affiliated with schools of music, things like that. Ohio State has a lot of stuff going on as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's places you can connect through all of that as well, and then filmmakers groups. I'll bet there is something. I'll tell people if there's not, start one. you know,
It's not a bad idea.
you
Yeah.
know, don't. And there's a bit. When you're a fly on the wall, you can get smacked and fall on the ground. But if you're in the center of the action, man, everybody comes to you. So you're in charge. You can fire them. Anyway. Okay, and then what's your goal 6 months from now, or 6 months to a year? What are you looking to do?
So I think my immediate goals, I'm trying to put together a website so folks have a place to go if they see Contagious and want more information. So I'm still coding up that website. But after that, I do have at least a half dozen other little animated short musical shorts that I'd like to do, just like Contagious. I have other songs that I've written with the mental visuals that are just waiting for me to get them coded up in Blender and rendered. Uh, and I'd like to continue down that path and get a few more of those done. I think the ultimate goal would be to reach the point where uh, I have the support and or the time to make that full length movie and series universe that I wrote down on paper 20 years ago. That's probably a very ambitious goal, but I think that would be
Yeah.
an awesome goal. I guess I kind of started that. An interesting note. Before I was able to do stuff in Blender, I still kind of reached out online a little bit, and there are some of these animation students whose schools closed down because of the pandemic. So I actually kind of hired one of those, just kind of on a personal level there, and worked with them to get some of the characters made for the movie that I would really like to do, like the whole big series. So that was a step in the right direction. But that's 5 or 10% of a very huge ambitious goal. So
Yeah. Oh, it's big. So if anybody wants to see this film, it looks like you have it on Film Freeway, publicly available, called Contagious Short Film, right?
that
So,
is correct.
yeah.
It's on YouTube as well,
Oh, wow.
under
Okay.
the YouTube channel Short Film Studio.
Okay. All right. Good to know. I'll put links on the information with the broadcast. But um, no, that's great. And again, it's a wonderful film, and you did a great job. I'm impressed that you have the audacity to sing and play and create a film all by yourself. I'm just saying, I know how hard all of those things are, and so anytime anybody does any of this stuff, what's really been kind of amazing about just doing this podcast is I really had no idea who I was going to start interviewing, and I just kind of put the word out initially, said, "Hey, anybody interested in doing this?" And I got assaulted by all sorts of interesting people, and there's some people that are heavy duty, Hollywood types, and then there's folks that are fairly new to it, and I started immediately go, what am I getting myself into? Am I, is this? And I started to calm myself and said, wait a minute, everybody's got something to say, and everybody's coming from a different place, and we're all on a different road. And what I appreciate what you've done is you've kind of, this is what you've taken your best assets and understandings and things like that, and then created, taking the process from beginning to middle to end, and then presenting it, and now getting in film festivals. That's exactly what I did. And although I didn't even honestly make the film that I produced, because it was made by somebody else 80 years ago, but I've done other things myself for like that. And I'm really impressed anytime anybody can create something from scratch like this and pull it off. And it doesn't matter whether it takes a year or 15, because it sounds like this one's been in process for a long time, But that's it. And the older you get, the more you realize that things take time, and you just got to hang in there and keep hammering at these things. And you're right about distractions. All it takes is, a little email popping up on your computer, and it's like, oh, I got to take, forget about the damn email, finish your damn project. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh, well, thank you, Ed, for all the kind words. I really appreciate that. I've been, as you mentioned, I do sing in the movie there, and very self-conscious of my singing voice, but at some point you just want to get it out there anyway. And I made kind of the hard decision to sing and cry at the same time a little bit, which just makes my voice sound even worse. But I felt it was a necessary evil for that extra connection with the audience, so I gave it a shot.
Well, I think it works. I mean, being someone who really struggles with my hearing my own. It's ironic I'm doing a podcast, because I never could handle my own voice in any way ever. I just don't like it. But that's natural for all of us to do that. And working with many, many singers over the years, I understand how difficult it is. Just pitch and, everything. There's so many aspects of it technically to do. But I think you do an adequate job in this film. And one thing about filmmaking is, in a way, I don't get, when I'm watching that thing, I'm not necessarily going, oh, I need to hear Elton John here or something like that. I'm listening, I'm watching a story develop, and what I'm interested in is what is the comprehensive package of what's going on here. Do I understand what's going on? I think that's much more important. So I wouldn't worry about that. I don't think that's the issue for you at all. I think you do fine. And the piano, it's a nice sound. And again, you got a little bit of the classic popular piano style in there, and it's well executed. It's intimate. So the production level is nice. I can see why it's going to do okay in the festival circuit. You'll just find yourself, the more you go after, you talk about 2 out of 3, that's really good. I mean, when we started our film run, we were getting 70%, which was astounding. And then, of course, that was from the invites. Once the invites stopped going, then it started to drop. And I think by the end of it, we were at about maybe 35% of submissions to get there. That tells you how many submissions we made. If you think about that number. So it's a little bit of a numbers game. It depends. And there's 9,000 festivals on Film Freeway.
Wow.
So you can pretty much go broke doing that. But, if you're real choosy about it and you do a lot of research and, again, a little promotion, whatever that is, there's a lot of places that'll get really interested in your film. And you never know where the road's going to lead. Because, once you make these connections, these film festivals do distribution. They do all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
There's an interesting channel called Indie Flicks that's actually emanates from, one of the people that started is in Seattle, but they also have an LA office. But they're interested in shorts and things like that. So, experimental stuff. So there are even platforms now that you can get a short film distributed at. It's not that typical, but it can be done. It's not going to happen that easily on major platforms. But, if you're creative about it, this thing can become a stepping stone, and, you never know where you can get it out there. So I wouldn't be afraid of anything. Just, keep pushing on it and be real creative about how you use it, for sure.
Sure. Well, thanks. I think that's fantastic advice. The two out of the three are the ones that have hit their started into their decision dates. I think I got it out to a dozen total, but the other ones haven't made any moves yet. And
It takes a while.
I thought a dozen was a lot. 9,000 is
Yeah. Well,
mind-boggling.
it depends what you're doing. If you're doing a feature or something like that, it's a whole nother world out there. So shorts really don't have a whole lot of life after a festival circuit. Typically, they become part of somebody's repertoire and on their website and stuff like that. But you really can't do a lot with them. Although again, I think you might if you're real creative about it. You never know what you can do with stuff. And I think like one thing we're going to be doing is taking As the Earth Turns and adding a couple of short fragments that we found from the same director and my documentary and make a DVD from it. So you never know where smaller assets can wind up. You think about Pixar and their original, computer animation stuff. Those are classics,
Yeah.
and those things are shorts. And they made it, they wound up on screen, and they're on all sorts of video recordings and things like that. So you never know, just keep
Pixar and DreamWorks are both huge motivators. Just absolutely love it. And the flip side of that would probably be Delgo, which was a lesson in what not to do when you're animating films. So, sure. Oh, you don't know Delgo?
No.
No,
next time.
Yeah.
We go down that road.
Look up Delgo sometime.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking we're about hitting the hour here. So, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, and really, really appreciate it, Brian. Brian Schmidt, and the film is Contagious. Again, if you look under Contagious Short Film on Film Freeway, or YouTube, what is it? Short Film Channel?
Short Film Studio.
Short Film Studio. Okay, good name, good brand there. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, mucho, and we will stay in touch down the line. If there's any filmmakers out there that would like to chat, please get a hold of me through edhartmanmusic.com. And if you haven't seen As the Earth Turns on this side, there it is, then you should check it out. Fun movie to watch. It's only 45 minutes. You'll get a kick out of it, and we'll look at the backstory on the website as well. So again, thank you, Brian, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, Ed. It was a blast.
You bet.